People ask why I never speak on this topic. In my opinion, it was pretty obvious where someone like myself would stand. Um, there, there are no reparations owed, not to you, not to your descendants, not to your ancestors, because for one thing, you don't know who your ancestors really even are. What is it? One in every three paternity tests today, where the man is not the father. Imagine what it was like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Some of the most intense black people that I see that are super prolific, pro black, I hate white people. Like they're only half black. Their mom or their dad is a white person. So they're just as much colonizer as they are indigenous. They're just as much master as they are the slave, but they want to lean into victimhood, which I do find problematic. But I'll let them speak for a second.
I'm so grateful that you both have taken the challenge to really go deep on what it means to give reparations to the descendants of enslaved Black Americans in this country. I know there are a lot of people who've been working on this movement before you. You're working on it right now. There's some others, but to have the courage to dig deep in this and to lay out a full blueprint on what can be done and what must be done for Black Americans to finally get the reparations that we need and deserve. I am in awe of your work. And so my first question is, what is the Black reparations movement for people who may not be familiar, and why is it important?
One thing I'm also noticing when you watch these movements, all of these black people are gay. These are older lesbian women. They've bared no children. They have no husbands. And when these women get to a certain point, a certain age, historically, your children will take care of you. You and your husband will, have sire children early so that you can have, you know, kids that are going to take care of you in your old age. Now you don't have none. Now you're older and you're begging the people that you're calling white supremacists to give you money. You were never a slave. You personally, you who are listening to this, you were never a slave, you were never an indentured servant. Neither were your parents, your grandparents, and you're not even sure if anybody in your family in the 1800s or 1700s, you have zero idea of what your lineage is. You can't even name your enslaved family member, and you can't even prove who was his slave master. Or and then even if they were an indentured servant working for someone that was white, it doesn't matter. They were working at the time. That doesn't mean they're owed anything later. That's like me working at McDonald's 30 years ago, and then I'll show up at corporate like, hey, where's my check? Where's my reparations? Remember, I was on the Nuggets? Because of me, you guys made 550 million the next year just because of me. Like, so you guys owe me money. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. The argument doesn't add up. It's not a white supremacist that's saying you weren't alive. It's anybody who's a pragmatic person with some sense who's thinking about the subject. Now, if you remove your brain and you're just speaking emotional and you're a beggar and you're a professional scammer, then yeah, you'll say stuff like, because I'm abused and my people got whipped and they used to buck break us. I'm talking, they used to put their yard gloves on and just buck break the dog shit out. Okay, if you want to think and have these homoerotic fantasies of these white men putting you in bondage and humping on your great, great, great grandpap, that's fine, Indy. You can have those fantasies. But pretending that people owe you money for work that you did not do. And don't forget, even the slaves were paid because food and fucking housing are not free anywhere. If you're working the land, in exchange for working the land, you're allowed to live on the land. Housing is provided, clothing is provided, and food. Well, fair exchange has never been a robbery. You can't be a sore loser and complain about the agreement and then later say, well, I was a slave, but you were an indentured servant. When they tell me the stories of how Juneteenth went, they say years later, they popped up in Texas, the the northern military, the Union soldiers, and they said there were still black people living on these large farms and plantations. And when they got there, they were telling these people, hey, you can leave. And a lot of the slaves were like, and go where? I'm working with this man. Well, you want me to quit? I'm gonna still need to come work for him. And you know what happened? The landowners, they turned these people into sharecroppers, which they already were sharecroppers. They went from indentured servant to sharecropper, and they worked out a deal with them where they were able to live on the land for free. The housing provided, they still had access to food, and they were just to tend the land. It was a symbiotic relationship, pretending that every single white American is a billionaire, because that's in the mind. You guys don't talk to black people. You don't know them. You have no idea what you're talking about when you talk about black people. Black people are not going to be honest with you about what's going on in their head. I pass black enough for black that I can actually be around them. In their mind, every single white person is a billionaire, even the homeless ones. Even the white people that live next door to them. They think secretly every white person is a billionaire, gazillionaire, and they just be whooping slaves, and their families had their family enslaved. I literally had my black friend tell me a couple of weeks ago. He said, yeah, I was a slave. And I'm thinking, like, I've known you since 5th grade. I'm trying to think about what year in high school did you take off to go work on a plantation? For me to believe your bullshit would be me basically, giving into your delusion. That's like me telling a person who believes they're trans, you're actually a woman, dick and beard and mustache and all. Sir, you are a man. I'm not going to believe in that delusion, and I'm not going to believe into this delusion that you were a slave yourself. Even these old lesbians right here, I'm not going to say, yeah, they used to be slaves. They weren't. They grew up privileged in the wealthiest country in the world. If they didn't make the most of their lives, that's on them. They're old and bitter. They have no children, no husband. And now the people they call white supremacists, they want them to give them. Why would a white supremacist give you a reparations check for work you didn't do? You were never a fucking slave. The slaves who you're talking about died in the early 1900s. The stories of the Tulsa race riots are false. Black Wall Street was built 3 years later, and it didn't die out until integration like the rest of the black communities, because even black people felt like white people's businesses were superior. That's nothing to do with racism. That's nothing to do with reparations. This woman, Nina, is a grifter. She's a liar. She's already lost her Senate seat. She's just in the public now. And whenever she wants votes or support, she dangles something in your face, a free check. And lazy bum-ass people that want to be taken care of by the government, the permanent EBT class, literally will start championing her and like sea lions. Nobody's giving you some money for something you did not do. That's like me saying I need reparations for a horse and buggy accident in 1890. And they're going to be like, okay, cool. So who hit you? I don't know. Okay, what was the name of your relatives that were alive back then that were hit? Well, I think one name was Billy Ray. The other name was Rob Billy. Give me money. Oh, but Rico, the Jews got money. They were still alive in the 60s, in the 50s, in the 40s, after the Nuremberg trials, when they started doing the disbursement of the Nazis, when they divided up the money that went into the German treasury and all the artifacts. A lot of stuff was returned to the Jews. And then reparations was paid off on that from the different countries that benefited from the Germans. Because remember, the German economy was strong. So they went after all these big companies that are still around today. And they said, you guys owe us some money because you benefited from the imprisonment of these Jews in this country. And everybody just kind of went along because the U.S. military had guns pointed at their head. But those people were still alive at the time. Well, Rico, they're giving money for the genocide. Again, that was this year. The Palestinians are still alive. Okay, when the Native Americans, they were still alive when when their land was being taken, and these were people that were still alive. They were in their 80s and 90s. They passed it down to their kids. They won. Also, to call yourself a Black American is it's a non-existent claim. You're not following the rules of humanity. The UN clearly says you cannot be a color and a human. You must have a nationality. There's no such country as African America. There's no country called Black America. You can't even get out of the country being African American. You're going to need a passport that says, I am an American. There's nothing Black on there or Africa referencing, nothing. All of this is just delusion and bullshit. And nobody wants to clear it up for you because everyone's afraid that you're going to get mad. Because apparently they assume that you all have a problem with the truth and accuracy. I give you more credit than that. I feel like we can have these conversations and you're not going to get too offended because no one owes you anything. If any reparations were owed to the slaves, it was paid in citizenship. That was the sole purpose of giving them citizenship to the country. You know, at one point in time, the goal was to repatriate the slaves and their descendants back to, was it Algeria, back in Africa? They had already worked out an agreement, and the goal of Abraham Lincoln was never to free the slaves. It was to remove you out of the country itself, back to Africa. Then you would have had to reapply for citizenship to come back here. Imagine that, you having to apply and beg to come back to a place that you hate, that you call racist and oppressive. Wouldn't that be something? You know, if they're able to get this whole birthright citizenship thing, get it removed and get that together, and then pass a certain amount of convictions, you can lose your citizenship and you can be deported to another country, and you have to reapply for citizenship that you won't qualify for due to your record and your history. I think you guys would be a little bit more patriotic and a little bit more respectful and loving of this amazing place. You know, I'm an immigrant. My family's immigrants. And it's crazy. You guys say, well, white people had a 400-year head start. You know what we say? Well, the Blacks had a 150-year head start. What, 175, actually, this is 2025. What year was the Civil War? So you guys had a 170-some year head start. So why are you living in the same hoods that us immigrants are? We barely speak English. We new here, 20-some years. Y'all been here for 150-some, 170 years. What's your excuse? White people 400, you got a 150 head start. You should be way further. If we're basing progress and where somebody should be off of that. Whose fault is it you don't want to assimilate and be an American? You want to be an African American. Whose fault is that? That's not nobody's fault. That's your choice. But choices have consequences. You have to live with those. You want to squander your time in America complaining about what you don't have instead of appreciating what you do have, go for it. You're not going to shame people into taking money from other people and giving it to you. Because once you burn through that money, you're going to be saying that wasn't enough and you're going to want more. You're not the first people. We call them crackheads. You ever gave somebody some stuff who's bad with money, and when they burn through it, they still need more? Baby mamas of athletes and drug dealers, they do this. It's all the same thing. It's no different. You never appreciate something that you don't work for and earn yourself. You want money? Earn it. You want your place in this country? Earn it and secure it. But you guys won't say America first. You won't say I'm a proud of American. You won't recite the Pledge of Allegiance. You're antithetical. That's why this whole birthright citizenship thing must be done away with. It was never meant to be used the way it is now. It's actually being abused by the people it was meant to help, which were the descendants of the indentured servants or the slaves, so that they wouldn't be sent back to Africa, even though they weren't from Africa. But the goal was to send them somewhere else so they wouldn't be trying to claim the land here where they were originally from, because they lost that land. If you get into a fight for something and you lose and you can't keep it, then you lost it. You can't be a sore loser and say, oh, it was stolen. No, you lost. Go watch a professional fight, two heavyweights. That's like one fighter gets beat up. He wakes up the next day and say, man, they stole the guy. Where's my belt? They stole my belt from me. It wasn't stolen. You lost it. You want to spend all your time being angry and mad and full of hate and anger it's pointless. Nobody's going to say, oh man, they're so mad, let's tear up the Constitution and give them a bunch of money. It's not happening. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, well, Rico, you're a tether. This and I don't call me whatever you want to, but you're still not getting. You're going to die begging for something that you weren't owed. You look ridiculous. Look how old these ladies are. There's no grandkids. There's no children. There's no husbands. Miserable people who squandered their opportunities away. Insufferable, gay. Nobody wants to be with them. Do you know how much time they wasted begging or trying to figure out how to scheme reparations money and use it to get people to vote for them when they could have been using that time to learn how to cook, learn how to be better women, building a family, staying home, taking care of kids, making memories, being a wife. You know, there are bigger and more important things than just begging for money all the time. Money that you're not going to get either anyway. I mean, we'll pander to you and we'll let you use that grift to get votes. The mayor of Atlanta said, hey, I'm about to freeze rent. In his own way, that's him trying to say, yeah, I'm going to give reparations to y'all. But he can't do it. Mondami just ran on that and he can't do it. There's no scamdemic, pandemic going on that they can say, we got to freeze rent, stop evictions because blah, 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 blah. There's nothing. All of this is just to get you to support them by lying to you. I don't like you enough to lie to you. I don't need your votes. I'm not running for office. So what do I need? But if I was trying to run for something, I know that you people are so dense that all you got to do is just make up a couple of things, play into your insecurities about how you look, and pretend that your victimhood is that you're just being victimized by everything around you and just feed into your delusion. And I know you would support me and love me. But I'd rather you hate me because of what you do know than you just all in love with me because of what you don't. I just don't have it in me to sit up here and lie to you. And I look at these sad women. She says, yeah, what did Nina say today? She said, what other bulls? Let's see what nonsense she said. Was it here? Yeah, here we go. Former Democrat Senator Nina Turner says she will no longer stand for white people denying black Americans the reparations they are owed. Whenever a black Americans advocate for reparations, white supremacists say, you weren't alive then. We're coming for our check. Okay, well, she's still not addressing the only important fact, you were not alive then. Doesn't take a white supremacist, or it just takes somebody with an IQ over 15 to say to you, you were not wronged. You are an individual. You are not one entity. You guys are not a hive mind. You guys are not some fucking serpent with 15 heads, and you guys are all part of one body. It's not a cluster of people. It's just they're individuals, but you guys it's a cult, but you're still not anybody you were not alive in the 1800s. You just weren't. You weren't. So nothing is owed to you. You're coming for your check. Coming to who? Are you going to Ghana? No, they're the ones who sold you. You're going to Nigeria? Aren't they the ones that sold you? Benin? They're the ones who packaged you up and put you on the beach for these other people to pick you up. They weren't a bunch of white men wearing Crocs, chasing you through the jungles, grabbing you by your loincloth, buck breaking you, throwing you on a boat. And then if you are dumb enough to believe that a bunch of people chained up on boats where there's no irrigation, no sewage system, no water, no food, and they were just being traveled by the thousands, you're an idiot if you believe the transatlantic slave stories in the first place. Anybody who believes that doesn't deserve anything. You're delusional and you're not able to think for yourself. You would somebody would refer to as a mental midget, because you got to be over a certain height to understand this ride. You're beneath there. None of that stuff makes any sense. There was no transatlantic slave trade. You know, people come to me all the time and say, "Oh, man, you're only dark skinned," because I say we are from Cuba. We're an island. We're on an island. What's the weather like on the islands? It's hot. You don't have to be an African to be dark, which is why you never see them talking about, The people in Sri Lanka deserve reparations because they are descendants of slaves, and the people in India who are darker than us deserve. They only go west. They don't go east with their bullshit because it would destroy their own arguments. They don't want to talk about that. You got to be careful who you listen to. They'll waste a lot of your years sitting around waiting on something that's not going to come. I think that's why a lot of people don't work. They would work, but in the back of their heads, they're like, man, that reparations check is on its way. I might as well just retire. Let me just kick it. I got the Section 8. I got the SNAP. I might as well just, got my little Social Security. Man, give me some menthols and just chill out. No, that's a horrible idea. You need to get to work. You need to provide for yourself. You need to contribute to society, or you lose it all. And when we have to fight to get it back, we're not going to include you. You'll be a pariah. You won't be welcome. So I hope you guys understand my stance on reparations and why you don't deserve them. You weren't alive. It's a pretty simple notion. It's not very complicated. So share the video, like and subscribe, use it for learning. You can send it around to people. You can learn something from it, hopefully. And I got another couple videos coming up in a few minutes. Remember, America first, America only.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.